I'm Emil Niazi sitting in for Elamin Abdel Mahmoud. This is Commotion. Now, if you follow any dancers on TikTok, I'm sure you've come across Miranda Derrick at some point. She's got perfect moves, a perfect smile, but it turns out there is so much going on behind the scenes with her story. She's at the center of a new documentary called Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok Cult. Take a listen.
We're quite famous. Hallelujah.
Influencer Miranda Derrick went viral after her family claimed she was part of a dance cult called 7M.
7M, an entertainment company founded by Robert Shin, who's also the pastor of LA-based Shekinah Church.
At first it was just, let's get Miranda out of this, and now it's turned into, wow, all of these dancers.
They just dance all day and then marry each other, and then they cut off all their old friends.
7M would tell you that they're in fact not a cult, that they're just a management company.
Is she in the cult? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I have some thoughts. People have some thoughts about Miranda, Pastor Shin, and all of the dancers who are miraculously still working for him. Sarah Berman is an investigative journalist who has written extensively about cults, and Ashley Ray is a podcaster and regular here on Commotion. Welcome to the show, both of you. I cannot wait to talk about this.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Yes.
So glad to
good
be here.
Okay, so Ashley, you've spent a lot of time watching shows about cults. How does this one about, let me say, an alleged cult stack up from the others?
I think what's really scary about 7M is that Robert Shin has been able to deliver on these promises that he's made to these people, right? So usually with a cult, the comet doesn't take you to a planet. Mother God doesn't, save everyone and bring back Robin Williams. It doesn't happen, and people start to doubt and they leave. But with 7M, he is getting them these contract deals. Brands don't seem to care that they're a cult. They just care that the dancers have followers. So these people have seen their money increase, their material wealth get better, everything. So that to me is different, and I think is why it is a little more insidious to break down this cult, because there is no silly belief you can point to and say, oh, look at how ridiculous this is so funny or whatever. It is truly people who are like, no, this could be an entertainment thing. I am making money. How are you going to say that's the problem? So it's just really scary how they're able to blend that line of legit media, talent agency, and scary church cult.
Yeah, definitely. Sarah, I know you've written extensively about the NXIVM cult. What did you think watching this series, given sort of all the extensive knowledge you have about these types of groups?
Yeah, so my first thought is wow, everybody on every side of this documentary is just so much savvier than 5-10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the parents already know the signs, the red flags, and they're, talking about family separation. They don't need a cult expert to explain it to them. They have been watching the documentaries and they know what's going on. But then also on the Robert Shin side, yeah, like Ashley was saying, there's just a slickness and a savviness. When NXIVM was trying to put out a statement about people leaving, it was it sounded insane. It sounded made to make two people feel guilty and not, presentable to the world. So this does mark sort of a new formulaic era of cult documentary and new era of everybody being super savvy about cults. Wow.
I wonder if that's helpful or not for society at large.
Unclear.
TBD. So Ashley, for anyone who doesn't know Miranda's story or who hasn't seen the docuseries yet, who is Miranda Derrick?
Yeah, Miranda Derrick, originally Miranda Wilking, is a twin sister and dancer with her sister Melanie, and they became TikTok famous together in their little hometown, dancing together as cute twins. Miranda decided she wanted to go to LA and sort of start her own career, and about a year later, Melanie followed. And LA is not a place where twins are often booked to dance together. It's more competitive than that. And pretty soon, I think Miranda realizes, I can't dance with Melanie. I have to be my own person. I have to, find my path. And that's how she gets involved with 7M. She quickly starts to see success with their formula of like dancing to old music. She gets millions of followers, and pretty soon she's married off to someone else in the cult. And at this point, Melanie is on the fence. Her twin sisters also come out to LA and is like, I don't know about this. This cult's kind of weird. But she manages to extract herself, while Miranda, most likely because she has this romantic relationship, is so deep in it. And anyway, it is the Wilking family that starts this whole thing and says, hey, our daughter is in a cult, help us. They're the ones who sort of ring the alarm and, you know, who start this whole thing. And by the end, they're kind of the ones really directing how Robert Shin leads his cult. You know, he's like, as long as they're happy, I'm not getting in trouble.
Okay, Sarah, let's talk about this pastor, Robert Shin. We've mentioned his name. What is this guy's MO?
Yeah, so he's been this pastor for more than 20 years. Before that, he was actually a doctor in Canada. And yeah, he sort of adopts, I think it's noted in the documentary, he has these elements of a Black church, just, you know, call and answer, some folks, you know, coming up to the pulpit. But he's got a lot of elements that look like just straight up manipulation. So, for example, you have to die to your family, and that's somehow going to come around and save them eventually. But, you know, so isolating people, really attaching to their money. So there's tithing, you know, you have to set aside big chunks of your income, and it becomes, you know, over the course of the documentary, you start to see a little bit more of that money coming out of their pockets when they get these big brand deals. And, you know, my brain is just assuming there's got to be a sex component to this. And I think when there's when there's religion and money together, there's just so often that third element. And I think the documentary, you know, pays off on that aspect. But to the outside world, he looks just like a regular guy. You know, you're not getting, you know, as Ashley said, those pretty out there elements. Everything he says sounds like regular church, except for the die to your family thing.
There's and also the NDAs. I just want to mention he rules with NDAs. If you go to the church service, you have to sign an NDA.
Which
but that sounds like LA.
I was just going to say that exact thing, Sarah. I was going to say, well, it's a church in LA, so maybe they do have to sign NDAs. Now, I should say, you know, for the record, Robert Shin has denied all the allegations, and he's countersuing the people suing him for defamation, just to make that clear. Now, you know, we talked about the dancers. They're really front and center in this doc series, but there's also the story of two sisters. And this really kind of like impacted me because it was so emotional, the stories of Melanie and Priscilla Lee. They had been part of the Shekinah Church for one of them for over 2 decades. And they really help us understand kind of how the coercion works, how the manipulation works. And while the dancers might have been getting some money, these sisters were giving all of their money to the church. So Sarah, can we just talk about them and sort of what stood out for you as far as like how this group operates through their story?
Yeah, so having looked into so many of these kinds of stories, of course, the bad behavior goes way, way back to the beginning. And usually they're just less good at it then. So it's truly manipulation by brute force. So they're, you know, controlled in these ways where they have to change houses every so often. You know, who they interact with is even more, you know, isolated, you know, selected on their behalf. And yeah, they just don't have any other outlet or any other sort of life connection outside the group. So when he finds the dancers, he's sort of perfected how to make it sound good. But in that earlier era, I guess, it's just brute force. And you can tell it's, you know, just a lot more trauma for them.
I mean, you know, that story, like I mentioned, was so emotional. Ashley, you know, was there a moment that struck you just in terms of how damaging this pastor was on some of these people's lives?
Yeah, I think when Priscilla shares her story, that's when we really see the negative impacts of this cult. I think a lot of people watching were kind of like, well, who cares? They're making money. If they just want to dance and go to a weird church, okay. But with Priscilla, you see that isolation has an impact where when she finally does leave and sits with her sister, she says, I don't even know how to be human. I don't know how to be a sister. She shows up late to her niece's birthday and is like, I don't know how to be a niece, an aunt to a child. I don't know how to do these things because she lost 20 years of her life to this man, where her entire being is centered around what makes him happy, what does he need, massages, etc. And so she's literally starting from sort of the beginning, a child of figuring out who she is, what she wants. And you see the fear that she is now 40. She didn't have the chance to have children. She put everything she wanted on the back burner. And that's sort of the realization she comes to. And eventually she does become the person who's sort of leading the charge in having sort of the worst evidence against him. And, she finds that strength to eventually go to the police. So yeah, I think really Priscilla and Melanie show us what could have happened to Miranda and Melanie if both of them had ended up in this cult. So it's just, I think what Priscilla describes is what Miranda is probably going through now, and it's what we're not seeing.
Yeah, I mean, that was such an emotional moment. I'm Emil Niazi. I'm sitting in for Elamin Abdel Mahmoud. You're listening to Commotion, and we are talking about the Netflix documentary Dancing for the Devil. I'm with Ashley Ray and Sarah Berman. So, Sarah, let's go back to Miranda now. She's refuting these claims. Her family releases this statement, and then she releases her own statement. I want you to quickly listen to this from Miranda's live feed.
I just wanted to answer a couple questions that some of you guys had. So one of the questions is, are you okay? I am great. Run, Nicole. I'm in a house.
Miranda's been posting a lot. And it's like, she is so brainwashed.
Wisdom will save you from evil people, from those whose words are twisted.
I heard Miranda reading from the Bible. It was so not my daughter.
So you heard Miranda and then you heard her mom reacting. Sarah, well, how does Miranda's sort of statement and version of this story land for you?
Yeah, I would say it hits all the right notes in terms of, at least inserting some doubt that this is a cult, again, just savviness on all the levels. I think, the worst of it is probably still behind closed doors. That's just not an element she's going to be able to let out at this point. Certainly it's happened in all of the cases that I've followed, that somebody puts out a statement saying, I'm fine, I'm in charge of my own life. Isn't there such thing as free will? And that is often enough that people need to hear to just sort of shut off and be like, okay, that's messy. I don't want to go there. Especially police, actually. They're not willing to go further than that if somebody says, hey, I'm okay, I want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly it does leave an impression that only someone who's very close to her can know truly what's going on.
No, Ashley, this is still unfolding. Miranda's still dancing on TikTok. She's getting millions of likes. People are commenting on it. And this documentary is coming out alongside all of the stuff that's still happening. I wonder, as she's still getting brand deals and people are still interacting with her content, even knowing that this information is out there, what's kind of our role in all of this?
Yeah, I do think we have sort of a duty to not follow. I know people love to watch a train wreck and they want to follow these people in a cult and see, what's going to happen and what's going to go down. But that treats it as entertainment. These are real people who are in a dangerous situation. And I actually am really just shocked that brands are still working with them. That really, I think, is the key to taking away his power. I mean, he has financial control over them. They truly do believe he is the reason I am rich. And as long as he is still able to put together these brand deals, he will always have control over them.
It's so interesting. Sarah, just to close us out, what are your sort of thoughts on where this story will go next?
Yeah, I don't love the audience tendencies that I see with lots of groups like this. Often there is that kind of car crash element. People start following, they want to see what happens. They want to see the mess. They want to see it all fall apart. But in doing so, they're sort of lending their eyeballs to something that's just a little bit icky. Yeah, I think we are a little bit complicit in this story now that we're, involved in it in our knowing and in our interactions online. And so if we teach the algorithm that this is something really worth looking at, there are implications for that. And I don't love the results in other cases. It doesn't usually go that well.
Well, I guess we'll keep an eye on this story. I appreciate your time so much. Sarah Berman is an investigative journalist in Vancouver. Ashley Ray is a comedian and podcaster out in LA. She hosts the show TV I Say.